Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Green Zone podcast for this week's episode, which is the 11th episode of our second season here in the College of San Scholastica Media Studio. I'm Cameron Green. I'm the host of this program here today on our YouTube channel. Make sure to follow us on our Twitter page, Green Zone Pod, as well as our YouTube channel as well. If you're not following already, come be a Green Zoner on the Green Zone Pod. That's what I call my fans here on the podcast. Today, I want to focus a big one on MLB free agency. Winter meetings are underway in Major League Baseball. And I said in previous videos, I wanted to see where these free agents would go and kind of do a little prediction video. I'll post a graphic on our Twitter page too of where we think players will go. But more so, I want to focus mainly on that today. So there will be no NBA power rankings. We'll do the MLB free agency predictions. I got 25 of baseball's biggest free agents of the year, where we think they're going to end up, other teams that might be in the mix. And then we will finish off with our NFL picks. So this year in free agency in Major League Baseball, it's a very big one for those of you who might not know a ton about baseball. Me, I'm a baseball guru. I live for this stuff. So MLB free agency, one of my favorite periods of the whole season. Mostly it's headlined with a generational Juan Soto making his first time to a free agency. I mentioned in my previous episodes before about World Series talk that I thought Juan Soto had the most to prove in this World Series just because of the fact that he's going to be getting top dollar. And what top dollar exactly is that? Because not many players reach 25 years old that have over 200 home runs and what he could have had two World Series championships under his belt to show for it at that point. But I want to start off getting to free agency. I'm going to go bottom to top. I don't really want to start with Juan Soto because the rest of it just feels like it's a little lopsided here. I'm going to start with the bottom. I think one of the more appealing free agents I have on my market today is Carlos Santana. Now, Carlos Santana was a Gold Glove winner for the Minnesota Twins last year. Was a great producer for them, especially at the age 38. He said he wants to play 3 to 4 more seasons. He is 38 years old and going to be 39 if he's not 39 already. Um, I think the Twins are in the mix for to get him back. I think the Yankees are in the mix to get him as well because the Yankees declined Anthony Rizzo's contract at 17 million, so they have a vacancy open at first base right now. But there's a better team, and I think a bigger team that needs a first baseman more than both the Twins and the Yankees that will pay Carlos Santana what he wants. I'm predicting Carlos Santana to the Houston Astros on probably a 2-year deal with a club option. I feel that with the absence of Jose Abreu, they might try to get a younger first baseman. They might try to get another veteran player. But for Carlos Santana at age 39 to win your first Gold Glove, I think he's the oldest player to ever win his first Gold Glove. Might correct me on that one, but I think that he fits what Houston wants to be. A guy you can plug in. You know, you don't have to be maybe at the top of the lineup because you have guys like Altuve and Tucker and Yordan Alvarez. You're going to put them near the top of your lineup, but Santana, a guy middle of the order guy who plays a strong first base, of course, a Gold Glove caliber player. I got Carlos Santana to the Houston Astros. Now, some of these I will elaborate probably like I did with Carlos there. Some of these will go a lot quicker, like this player I have here. Jurickson Profar is a free agent now this year after being on you can call it a roller coaster of an MLB career, up and down, really never reaching his full potential until we saw it this year. Jurickson Profar, I believe, in my opinion, is going to be back with San Diego Padres. I don't think he wants to go anywhere else. I think he's comfortable staying in a place that took a chance on him some years ago. I think that San Diego's a good fit for him. They have a place for him in the outfield. He can also play a little bit of the infield. They really need him to. But he's got a spot in that outfield in San Diego. I think Jurickson Profar, a perfect fit for what San Diego wants to do and continue doing what he's been doing with this year. San Diego's going to offer him probably a I'd say a 3 or 4 year deal, I would say, for Jurickson Profar. Next one, we have an aging veteran. Veteran, maybe more so. Legend's the word for it. Max Scherzer is on the market this year after spending last season with the Texas Rangers. Actually pitched pretty well for them down the stretch. But I think Max Scherzer's at that point of his career that, there's teams in the mix here. I'm always going to have the New York Yankees probably flirting with a lot of my free agent picks. It'd be a common theme with this one because they are a spending team and their rotation is pretty good. But if they wanted to get an aging veteran, they've done it before with Mike Mussina, and they've seen their aging veterans before. You get guys with experience. Scherzer's a World Series champion, multiple time Cy Young winner. I also concede in this one the Detroit Tigers being in the mix for him just because That is kind of where he got his career kickstarted. I know he started in Arizona, but back to where it really got going there in Detroit. But I think Max Scherzer is going to go to the Milwaukee Brewers. I think Milwaukee feels like they need a few more pitching help than they could really need. Maybe give Max Scherzer a 1 or 2 year deal that he really likes, more for average annual. And of course, pitching in the NL Central, I don't think Scherzer's really ever done um, in his career. I think Detroit, Washington, New York Mets, Texas Ranger. Like I don't think he's ever pitched in the NL Central, and it is kind of a weaker division. You could say that way. There's some teams on the come up for them, but I do think that he's gonna be one of those guys that would fit really well into what Milwaukee really wants to do, and could be one of their bona fide aces on that squad. So I have Max Scherzer going to the Milwaukee Brewers. This one here is also going to be a little bit of a short one. Sean Manaea pitched a very incredible season last year for the New York Mets. I think he's going to stay a New York Met. I don't think he is going to be going anywhere. I think that the New York Yankees are probably the other mix in here for him because he's kind of like a Nestor Cortez-esque player, but I think he really enjoyed himself in New York last year. So Sean Manaea will stick around with the Mets. Next one's a little interesting. Tyler O'Neill. I have this one kind of going down between the three teams, the Red Sox, the Phillies, and the Rangers. Of course, O'Neill played pretty well last year for the Red Sox. And he doesn't have that one. He has that one season in his career, I believe it's 2019, that he can really look there and say, "This is my peak. This is my potential. This is what the contract I'll be kind of going with the rest of my career." You never really know. But Tyler O'Neill does have a strong arm, quick player. Can hit well. He hit well in Boston last year, but I think he's going to go south this year, and he is going to be in the AL West. He's going to be a Texas Ranger. I think Texas has a few holes in their outfield they would like to see differently, and Tyler O'Neill has some good pop for that stadium. So Tyler O'Neill to the Texas Rangers. Next one on our list is Gleyber Torres. I have the Yankees as a potential team. I don't have them re-signing with the Yankees just because of the fact that I don't think that New York is prioritizing him. They're prioritizing Juan Soto, and I'll get to that at the end where I think Juan Soto is going to go. But I think in the meantime, Gleyber Torres is going to say, listen, I'm not going to wait around to get a deal done. If I get a right team from a right squad, I'm going to go there. And I think a good place for him right now, Detroit. The Detroit Tigers, I think, is going to be where Gleyber Torres lands. They're going to try and get rid of Javier Baez with any power they have. Even if it requires, Javi's gonna make 26 million this year. If they pay 18 mil of it, 19, even 20 million dollars of that contract, they have to accept the fact it was a bad signing. You're gonna have to move on. Gleyber Torres, however, can play a good second base for them. I think he fits really well into what they want to be. They have money to spend, and I think on top of that, they're a team that show that they can be a playoff caliber squad, so they have a lot to show for that. Whereas I think Gleyber Torres could use some veteran leadership for Detroit. Therefore, I have Gleyber Torres falling to the Detroit Tigers. Yusei Kikuchi is the next free agent we're going to be looking at today. I have the Texas Rangers as the main other team that he could go to, if besides the team I have him falling into here. But I have Yusei Kikuchi going to the Minnesota Twins. The Twins right now are in a funky spot because you're in the middle of trying to sell your team. You're the Jim Pohlad and family or whatever, Pohlad family. Um, and you have guys on the payroll that are going to be making significantly more money. I'm looking at Pablo Lopez, makes a lot more money next year. Byron Buxton's on to year 3 of the big contract. Carlos Correa makes over $30 million. I don't know if they want to sell because I've heard rumors about Correa possibly being moved and him being kind of like a secret free agent this year. But the Twins do need some pitching help. Look at last year. So of the guys that are locked into that rotation, Pablo Lopez, Bailey Ober, Joe Ryan, that's guys I think you really are flexed and say probably good to go. Then you have open spots. Chris Paddock's been injury prone basically his whole career. You got good innings last year from Zebby Matthews, but again, those are building block starts, and you got some good starts from other players. But if you look at them, they need another pitcher. Yusei Kikuchi pitched really well down the stretch of this last season. The Twins will probably pay him somewhere of a 2 year, $24 million deal, $12 to $15 million, somewhere in there. It's not bankrupting them, but it will put him in the upper half of their payroll. And for a team that's not really looking to spend, this is kind of where I see a team spending. It's going to be about $10 to $12 million. I don't think the Twins are really going to accept the fact that were not better than Detroit, Kansas City, or Cleveland. I mean, I think they are personally on paper. I just don't think they want to invest that into what their payroll represents right now. Those teams are all playoff teams. I think the Twins can definitely be that. But what's going to set you apart is where do you make your differences in the in free agent market. With that, that big rant there, Yusei Kikuchi, I think is going to be a Minnesota Twin. Clay Holmes, this one pretty simple. I think he's going to be a Chicago Cub. I think he's going to be their new closer. They've had some bullpen problems for the last few years or so. And Clay Holmes probably won't want to go back to New York Yankees. He'll go to another big market, but still be the closer there. Clay Holmes, I think, going to the Cubs. Ha-Sung Kim. Other teams right now I have on him, and the Atlanta Braves is a possible location for him. I think Ha-Sung Kim, though, going from the Padres to the Giants, not moving too far, still be in the state of California. Now, does he play shortstop? Does he play second base? They have had some shortstop problems. You just haven't had some of your prospects pan out at short. If you're the San Francisco Giants and you get a guy, Ha-Sung Kim, who's probably one of the best defensive shortstops in all of baseball, and forget the National League, you're getting the guy who I think will stay in the NL West. I think he's going to play second base or shortstop somewhere in there because I do have a prediction down the line here that we will get to. So leaving that one in there, I have Ha-Sung Kim going to the San Francisco Giants. Teoscar Hernandez is the next free agent we want to look at. I have the Dodgers and the Braves as possible teams going for him, but I think he's a perfect guy for the Boston Red Sox to have in left field because Teoscar is not the best defender, but he can hit the ball a country mile, and especially pulling the ball over the green monster. Let's bring Teoscar Hernandez back to the Boston Red Sox. I think there's a team that's going to be more aggressive than anyone here in free agency. It's going to be the Boston Red Sox. They want to return to their dominance and return to being a team that's a high market and where players want to come play. Starts with Teoscar Hernandez. I think he's going to be a Boston Red Sox. Nathan Eovaldi is the next one on our hand, the right-handed pitcher. Opted out of his deal with the Rangers. I got the Phillies and the Orioles as the main teams for him. The Orioles, I really think, could be a really strong contender, especially if they do lose Corbin Burns, a guy they could pivot to and still keep on going, because I think they're still going to be able to have John Means, Grayson Rodriguez. I think if you had Nathan Eovaldi being your opening day starter, it would be pretty good for the Orioles. But I have Nathan Eovaldi going to the Atlanta Braves, and that's a weird little coincidence there. But I think that Atlanta wants to put themselves in a spot where LA had to do. The LA Dodgers spent money, and look what they got them, a World Series championship. Next year, you aim to have what is likely the Cy Young winner, Chris Sale there. Spencer Strider, who was my Cy Young favorite into last season. Nathan Eovaldi be a perfect guy you could put in that number 3 spot in the middle of series. If you have a series coming out the first part of the year and you have Sale, Strider, and Eovaldi, that's one of the best rotations in baseball regardless. Now, I don't know if Spencer Strider will be ready for opening day. It's more looking like it's probably going to be middle of the season towards the late part of the year. It is almost like a year and a half to where you want to be. So I think that they're going to need to pick up where Strider's not going to be there for, where Nathan Eovaldi fits in there perfectly for the Braves. Christian Walker right now, other teams I have in there are the Houston Astros and the New York Mets. I only have the Astros and Mets in there if they can't get their primary guys. I already said that Carlos Santana, I think, is going to go to the Astros. I don't think that the Mets are going to lose Pete Alonso. If that gives away where I think Pete Alonso is going to go, there's another team that needs a first baseman I had in there with Carlos Santana that needs one, and that's the New York Yankees. I think Christian Walker will get a big contract from the New York Yankees. They are now in a bidding war with the Dodgers. I'm serious. I think it's going to become more evident than not after the Dodgers of what they've done with Shohei Ohtani and him only making $2 million this year, and he'll get paid, a boatload for the next 30 years, whatever it is. This is going to change baseball. It's going to change baseball from the spec from a payroll. It's going to separate the good teams from the bad by the buyers and the spenders. Every year we find teams that are surprise teams that are going to try and sneak under the bubble. But in baseball now, the teams that are going to take the best free agents away are going to be the teams that spend the most money. The New York Yankees are evidently clear they need to spend money to compete with the Dodgers. They proved they can win the American League. Now, even though it wasn't really that tough an American League this year, they proved that they were better than Boston. They're better than Toronto. They're better than Baltimore even this year at some points and stretches, you could argue. But Christian Walker's going to put them over the top in a lineup too because he can hit the ball a long ways, especially in the Yankee Stadium. And he's probably the best defensive first baseman in all of baseball. Therefore, I think Christian Walker to the Yankees makes perfect sense for them trying to upgrade a position they've been lacking at for a few years with Anthony Rizzo. You get a younger first baseman, you get a better first baseman. It would not surprise me if Christian Walker gets 3 years, upwards of $16 million per season. Maybe say 3 years at $50 million for Christian Walker. So Christian Walker, I think, is going to be a Yankee. Shane Bieber is our next starting pitcher. I have him with the Rangers, the Reds, and the Diamondbacks all in the mix for him. Shane Bieber to me, though, I have him going back to Cleveland. I think he's a perfect fit there for them. If Cleveland does want to get a little bit extra in free agency, they might do that, but I think they have a really good squad. They don't really have to improve that much. Shane Bieber, I just really think that he's going to be a good fit for them long term wise. He's coming off Tommy John surgery, and I think Cleveland's going to be the best spot for him to prove it in a comfortable spot where he knows the staff, he knows the city, he knows everyone there. Even I think if it gets a 2 year deal with a mutual player option for both of them, probably at 20 million a year, I would say Shane Bieber, we'll say 2 years, $18 million a year, 36 million with a club and player option there. So I think he's gonna be a free agent probably next season, but this season he's gonna be with the Cleveland Guardians back there. Tanner Scott, I have him flirted with the Blue Jays and the Yankees, one of the best closers in all of baseball. But I don't think Kenley Jansen's going to be back with the Boston Red Sox this year. Therefore, I think the Red Sox are going to go out and get Tanner Scott. I think that they're going to say they're going to be the most aggressive team in baseball. Tanner Scott's probably a top 10 closer in baseball for sure, if not top five. This is where I think he fits perfectly for them. Tanner Scott, reliever, going to be going to the Red Sox. Jack Flaherty. Other teams I have for him are the Red Sox, and I actually have the Detroit Tigers being in that mix for him to go back there. He said he really enjoyed that place. He really enjoyed it there. But I think the Dodgers will give Jack Flaherty a very considerable amount to stay around in LA. It was a good resurgence here for Jack Flaherty. So I think Jack Flaherty will stay a Giant for this season. Willie Adames. A perfect team for him looks like the Los Angeles Dodgers. On paper, it looks like it's going to be a great fit for him. But I have him playing next year, shortstop or second base, maybe even third base, for the San Francisco Giants. And I say that because I think it immediately makes him one of the faces of the franchise. Where if you're in LA right now, okay, you're fighting Otani, you're fighting Mookie Betts, you're fighting Freddie Freeman. There's a lot of guys there. You're on the public list. You're probably on 4 or 5 in terms of the superstar list of where you are popularity. You're in San Francisco. I can't think of that many players that are really better than you on the team. It's cool to have Jung Ho Lee out there, and I think if they get Ha-Seong Kim, it'll be cool for them. But you could literally be the face of the franchise for the time being in San Francisco, and I think Willie Adames will be a New York or a San Francisco Giant for next season. Now, Pete Alonso, I already gave this one away. I don't think Pete's going anywhere. I think the Mets will get him probably upwards of $150 million for 5 or 6 seasons. Pete Alonso, I have him rumored to the Yankees and the Astros. He's going to be a New York Met. I'm going to move past that one pretty quickly. I don't think Pete's going anywhere. I'll get a big deal from the Mets. Anthony Santander, 40 home runs last season with the Orioles. I don't think Baltimore really wants to re-sign him. And it doesn't really make sense for what they're doing because if you think about it, you got guys who are young and up and coming, Adley Rutschman, Jackson Holliday, Gunnar Henderson. Those guys will have to get paid eventually, and I think you're going to try and cut costs at any way you can. And unfortunately for Anthony Santander, for a guy who doesn't get on base that often, makes you pretty expendable, especially when they have other guys there who are ready to take your spot as the right fielder DH guy. Anthony Santander, I have him going north of the border to the Toronto Blue Jays. I think that Toronto needs the bat in their lineup more than any team in baseball. I have him rumored here, the Tigers and the Guardians, but I just don't think they're going to want to spend the money for him. He's probably going to be close to 20 million a year. I'd probably say 18 to 19 million for him. He's a power hitter. He's a great slugger, but is he really a DH right fielder? He can't really field that well at all. I'm going to have him going to the Toronto Blue Jays. Max Fried's the next one on our list. I have him rumored to go back to the Braves and to the Chicago Cubs. I don't think he's going to go to either one of those teams. Max Fried is going to be a San Diego Padre next year. And I say that because I mainly think that Max Fried fits well within their system, much like Blake Snell did a few years ago, where he doesn't have to be the guy anymore, not like he was in Atlanta. But I think Atlanta's going to pivot more towards Eovaldi than Max Fried. Max Fried's an older free agent. Yeah, he's a good player. He's a good fielder, of course, but really, I think that he wants to get a fresh spot, or he can be one of the dudes there, right behind Dylan Cease. He can be that number two in that rotation. Max Fried to the Padres. Alex Bregman, I have him rumored to the Astros, the Mariners, and the Nationals. This is a probably, if you think about it, I'm gonna make a hot take here. Alex Bregman is the most important free agent in this year's class. I say that because if you think you want to go after Juan Soto, Corbin Burns, Blake Snell, Roki Sasaki, any one of those guys, they will either break your free agency as if say we're going to be done there, that'll be it, or they'll make it. But I think Alex Bregman for a lot of teams is available. I don't think Corbin Burns or Juan Soto is available for most teams in baseball. They're not going to pay it. The fact that I have the Nationals in here would immediately make him the face of the franchise. We thought CJ Abrams was going to be the face of the franchise. And then he had that thing last year with being out in the casino until the late, early mornings. That's not going to fly. And you have Dylan Cruz and James Wood. You have a solid foundation there in Washington. Why not sign a 5-year deal or a 6-year deal, which I think Washington's going to be very generous, and give him a 5 or 6 year deal worth upwards of $20 million per season to be the face of the franchise. Now, I'm going to flip this thing here. The New York Mets are a team that I think looking at here, they desperately need a third baseman because Brett Beatty's fine. He's an okay player. He's really okay of a prospect there. He had Jose Iglesias play there a little bit last year. The Mets really do need a third baseman. It comes down to if they get Pete Alonso or not. But therefore, I'm flipping it here. I think Alex Bregman will be a Washington National on a 6-year deal worth probably $120 million because they want a franchise player. Go out and get a franchise player. You don't have Corbin or Patrick Corbin on the payroll anymore. Go out and get your free agent. Alex Bregman to the Washington Nationals is where I have him there. Blake Snell's the next one on here, the Cy Young from a few years ago. I have a link to the Red Sox and the Giants, of course, returning there, but I don't think he's going to go either of those ones. I think he's going to go to the Texas Rangers because I think Texas will lose Nathan Eovaldi this year and panic and give a lot of money out to Blake Snell. They give a lot of money to Jacob deGrom. They're paying him to not pitch. A lot of money from Max Scherzer is no longer on the table. Didn't really have a lot going in on them. But Blake Snell would fit there. I think he'd immediately be the number one pitcher in that rotation. So I think Blake Snell perfectly fits in with the Texas Rangers. Roki Sasaki, one word, Dodgers. He fits perfectly for them. He really wants to be in there with Otani and Yamamoto. It makes a lot of sense, and especially when you're playing for Team Japan, the World Baseball Classic. I get it. Hiroki Sasaki, the Dodgers. Move on. Final two free agents I have in this class. Corbin Burns. I have a link to the Orioles and link to the Mets. Both of these teams, I think, are going to go all in on Corbin Burns more so than they will Juan Soto. But there's another team that I mentioned, the big spenders. Corbin Burns will be a Boston Red Sox and be the ace of that franchise for a long time. 6-year contract, maybe upwards of $150 million per season, making probably $30 million per year. He's one of baseball's best pitchers year in and year out. It's time he starts getting paid like one. The Boston Red Sox will open their paychecks, open their checkbooks, and we will pay him what they need to. Boston needs to have a solid free agent year because they need to prove to their fans that they are still devoted to the team, that John Henry and them are still devoted to building a winner in Boston. It starts with Corbin Burns. I think that'll be the free agent signing for them this season. And now Juan Soto, the final guy I have in this free agent pool. The Giants and Red Sox, I've mentioned with him that he's going to have a good mix with them, but I don't think so. I'm thinking about New York. I'm thinking about the Yankees. I'm thinking about the Mets. Both teams, I think, will offer him 12 to 14-year contracts worth probably 600 million plus for sure. The team that's going to do that in New York is the Yankees. I think Juan Soto will stick in New York with the Yankees because where do you want to be than right here, right now? Dynamic duo of Jeter and A-Rod, Ruth and Gehrig, Judge and Soto. It fits perfectly for him to stick with New York. You just came into the World Series on a squad that you know that they're going to build around you in the future. Yes, Aaron Judge is kind of the guy, and he probably will be there until he retires. He's just kind of the way it is. But you know you have a front office that wants to spend and wants to help you. Therefore, I think Juan Soto perfectly fits to what the Yankees want to do. I think he's going to stick with them this season on a 12 to a 14-year contract. So there's my MLB free agency predictions. I got 25 of the biggest free agents on the market. I really want to see maybe coming the end of the season where this goes. I'll be reacting to a lot of these ones as we go. Free agency, like I mentioned, my favorite times of the year. Final segment of the day, we're going to get on to our NFL picks as we do every week, beginning with tonight's Washington Commanders taking on the Philadelphia Eagles in Philadelphia. Philadelphia is 3.5 point favorites in this one. Look, and I said last week, Jaden Daniels hasn't really played a bad game. It still kind of stands as we speak. I think the Eagles is a tough place to play in Philadelphia. It's going to get to the rookie. Eagles going to take this one in the straight up, and they'll take this one in the spread at 3.5. Green Bay Packers are 6.5 point favorites as we go into Soldier Field in Chicago there. Listen, the Bears are a mess. Caleb Williams playing not very well at all. He's not engaged with his receivers. The O-line's not doing a great job. The defense is okay, but still not where they want to be. Green Bay is going to run through them just like Aaron Rodgers did for a long time. Jordan Love's going to have a great game against the Bears. The Bears are going to fall in this one to 4-6. Packers are going to take this one. They're 6.5 point favorites on the road. I got the Packers in the straight up. I got the Packers in the spread. Jacksonville Jaguars and Detroit Lions. This is the biggest spread I think I've seen all season at 13.5 points. The Jaguars are 2-8. The Lions are 8-1. Much like a few weeks ago when the Lions, I think were 11.5 favorites for the Titans, and they did clear that one. It's again one of the worst teams in football taking on one of the best. Jacksonville doesn't really have a lot to play for right now. Detroit would like to have a good bounce back game. They felt like they could have won last week, and they did, but could have played better against Houston. I'm going to take the Lions in the straight up and the spread at 13.5 points. I think they're one of the best teams in football. I think they're going to go out with something to prove, and they're going to have a great game against, I don't know, especially with no Trevor Lawrence this week. Jacksonville will struggle. Detroit Lions will take this one by at least 13.5 points. Minnesota Vikings on the road against the Tennessee Titans. The Titans are 2-7. Vikings are 7-2. Listen, I have the Vikings at 6.5 point favorites. They're listed as. I'm going to take the Vikings in the straight up, and I also take the Vikings in the spread. This one's, I think, pretty easy to me. Vikings in both of those ones. Las Vegas Raiders taking on the Miami Dolphins. Dolphins are 3-6. Raiders are 2-7. Look, I want to take the Miami Dolphins, but I don't really think they've given you anything really to say to really prove that to you. But then again, have the Raiders done anything either? I don't really think so. The Raiders haven't really won any game that they've meant to. I'm going to take the Miami Dolphins in this spread as well, the straight up and the spread at 7.5 points into this weekend. So Dolphins are both spread and the straight up over the Raiders. LA Rams will be taking on the New England Patriots at 5.5 point favorites. Matthew Stafford's actually been playing really well these last few weeks. New England wants to get off to a better fitting here with Drake May. You want to have a good, better run with him. I think the Rams are going to have a really good bounce back game, get back to 500. They have a lot to prove in the NFC West. They've proven they can probably win that division, whereas the Patriots, I don't think, are anywhere close to winning the AFC East even one bit at all. So I will take the Rams in the straight up, and I will take them at 5.5 point favorites over the Patriots. Cleveland Browns and New Orleans Saints, where the Saints are 1.5 point favorites. This one to me, it's tricky, but it's not. I'm going to take the Saints in the straight up in the spread. I think Derek Carr is going to have a really good game. They're going to go back to winning 2 straight for the first time since the first 2 weeks of the season. They have good weapons there in New Orleans that they probably weren't utilizing when Spencer Rattler was the quarterback. They're going to start to get their mojo back with Derek Carr, and you start to build towards something for next season. I'll take the Saints at 1.5 point favorites in the straight up and the spread. Baltimore Ravens are 7-3. They'll be taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers, who are 7-2. The Ravens are 3.5 point favorites at home. Now, the Steelers have that really solid defense along them, but I'm concerned a little bit because Baltimore has such a great running game, and I think they're actually going to run through Pittsburgh. I think this one's not going to be particularly close. I will take the Ravens in the straight up and the spread at 3.5 points. Next game on our hands, the Indianapolis Colts, who are 3.5 point underdogs, actually against the New York Jets, who are 3.5 point favorites at home. I'm sorry, Jets fans, but I really have nothing else to pick you for. I'm going to go with the Colts at 3.5 point underdogs because I just think Anthony Richardson's going to have something to prove this week. Richardson needs to have a solid game against the Jets, and right now I don't think Aaron Rodgers really is really I don't want to say disengaged, but I think kind of not giving up on the season, but you're just not focused on what this year has anymore. They need to get new coaching staff and new everything in there. I'm gonna take the Colts this week at 3.5 point underdogs against the Jets. Atlanta Falcons and Denver Broncos. Broncos are 5-5. Falcons are 6-4. I'm going to take the Atlanta Falcons this week, bouncing back against the loss against New Orleans. I think they needed that loss to humble them a little bit. Kirk Cousins still playing a great game, as well as Bijan Robinson. I think Atlanta's got better weapons than Denver does, so that's why I'm going to take the Falcons in the straight up, and I'll take the Falcons in the spread. Getting down to some of our final games of the week. Sorry, I'm going through this pretty quickly here, but I feel like we spent a lot of our time in the MLB free agency thing. So, Seattle Seahawks taking on the San Francisco 49ers. The 49ers are 5-4. Seahawks are 4-5. I'm going to take the 49ers in this one. Brock Purdy's played really well over the last month and a half of his football career so far. And I think Seattle right now is a little bit in shambles. Don't really know what exactly is going on, if DK Metcalf's going to be healthy or not. Says he's going to play, but really to what extent does that mean? Whereas San Francisco has a lot more to prove right now. I think they're going to take them at 6.5 point favorites. I will take them in the straight up and in the spread. 325 game of the Kansas City Chiefs will be taking on the Buffalo Bills. The Bills are actually 2.5 point favorites in this one. And I can't blame them the way that game ended last week between the Chiefs and the Broncos on the blocked field goal to win the game. But in this case, I will not go against Kansas City until someone beats them. If Buffalo beats them this week, it proves that Kansas City is beatable. I still think they are, but they haven't really shown it right now. Kansas City at 2.5 point underdogs. I'll take Kansas City in the spread and Kansas City in the straight up. Cincinnati Bengals taking on the LA Chargers, where the Chargers are 1.5 point favorites. And this one, I don't see it. I think Joe Burrow's going to have a great game this week on Sunday Night Football. I'll take Bengals in the straight up, and I'll take Bengals in the spread at 1.5 points. And Monday Night Football is the Houston Texans, who are 6-4, taking on the 3-6 Dallas Cowboys, who need to be put out of their misery. If you ask me, I think Houston needs to have a good game because they've been slumping the last month or so after losing Stephon Diggs. They need to find a way out of this rut, and what better than to beat up on the Dallas Cowboys. So I will take the Houston Texans in the spread at 7.5 point favorites on the road in Dallas, and I'll take them in the straight up as well. That's all I got for you today on the Green Zone podcast. I thank you for tuning in. Once again, follow us on our Twitter page at Green Zone Pod. Also follow us on our YouTube channel at Green Zone Pod. Like and subscribe to this one. Become a Green Zoner from Cam and Green and the Green Zone podcast. I'm signing out. Have a rest of your day, guys.